This is maybe like the most dangerous non-super speedway track on the schedule. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about Kansas, but for some reason it has turned into a mini super speedway with the crashes that it has. Like, no matter what year it is, you can almost guarantee that there's going to be some horrific crash at Kansas. And we saw another one here last night, Thursday night, NBC race. Ryan Preece killed the inside wall and almost flipped upside down. I mean, he hit it hard. Luckily for him, it was on a restart, so it wasn't really going that fast. He had gotten half a lap up to speed, so he was probably going, I don't know, 160 at best. So luckily for him, that's what happened. Thankfully, he's okay. In fact, he was more mad than hurt, which is good. Which is good to see. So Kansas, right? A break we needed from what we had been going to the past few weeks. Tracks like Pocono and Indianapolis and Kentucky and Texas. God, golly, get me away from those tracks. Kansas was at least better than those. It wasn't anything spectacular by any means. It was, I would just kind of say, a good Kansas race. I don't remember the last time there was an absolutely terrible Kansas race. Maybe sometime back in 2017, but both 2018 races were good. Both 2018 first race was great. The second 2019 race was acceptable. This one was kind of, I don't know, I would kind of say this one was kind of like last year's fall race. It wasn't really spectacular by any means, but it at least had some good racing. It had different grooves, which wasn't manufactured different grooves. It had tires that actually wore out at points. So, it actually was a decent race. I wouldn't say it was amazing. I would call it like a 7.5 rating. 7.5 out of 10. I would give it that. I don't think it was. It was good. It was a good break from what we'd been having over the past few weeks with tracks like just don't even remind me. To kind of recap about. I don't know if I really want to talk about the race because not much really happened in the race. There were a lot of different leaders. It was a lot of kind of shuffling around with different strategy. I do want to talk about this one point where I was like, oh my god, we're going to have our third straight winner where they weren't seen at all during the race and then they magically appeared. William Byron had a strategy to stay out while basically I think everyone else came down pit road to at least get fuel because they were basically right on the edge of their fuel window. Drivers were like a few laps short or a lap short so they could try and save. So it was going to be kind of like that. William Byron stayed out, basically banking on no one can make it, and if I just stay out front and get track position, then we can come down with it. Well, we'll come down earlier than anyone else, but hope there's no yellow flag, and then we'll cycle back out to the race lead. So Byron did not pit. He ended up losing the lead to Brad Keselowski, but then got it back, stayed with Kes, and then got it back, even though he hadn't pitted in 18 laps, and other drivers had pitted and taken 2 tires or 4 tires, which was quite confusing to me. But then you kind of realize, okay, he paid 18 laps ago, but there were a lot of caution laps in that because they just didn't stop wrecking. So I would say that maybe he had at most 10 laps on his tires. So that's not that much of a difference, and it shouldn't be like, oh, 10 laps on your tires, you're absolutely killed. It should, the longer you go, maybe kind of fade off, but it seemed like Byron kept pulling away from Keselowski and was a lot better than the drivers behind him. So that was a little confusing, and I was like, my gosh, this guy, I think at best was maybe 13th, and then he suddenly was up to the front. He was running like 22nd at one point during the race and running outside the top 15. So the fact he was up there leading the race either shows that his car was really good and he got stuck in dirty air and couldn't do anything, or his car was bad, but once you get the clean air, it makes your car ultimately good. We saw this at Texas. We had 2 cars that were barely top 15 cars, Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon. They were really good cars, and you couldn't pass at Texas. They went up, right? 2 tires and no tires. They're 1-2. And this is with over 20 to go. And once again, they had a full fuel run on their tires. and they did not get past, never got challenged, and once they battled side by side behind them, they would lose tenths and seconds a lap. That's how bad it was, okay? Luckily, Kansas is not like that. Luckily, Kansas is better managed than Texas, and you can run side by side Kansas and not lose much time. If you lose time, it's like I might lose a tenth or half a tenth, but it's not going to be like, oh, I lost 5/10 because I ran side by side with a guy. That's just stupid. That's dumb, you know? Luckily at Kansas, that doesn't happen. So, fortunately, tire wear was a little bit more of an issue, as we saw later in the race when Bowman and Byron got out front. Granted, they didn't have the best cars during the day. It was very obvious that Bowman and Byron were, at best, top 15 cars. So, them taking 2 tires and them falling back to the latter half of the top 10 at least showed, oh my God, you can actually pass here, and tires actually keep, tires actually make a fucking difference, which is great to see, because in Kentucky and Texas, it's infuriating when stuff like that happens. It's just stupid. So, Kansas, good race, what I really want to talk about, though, is the ownership of tracks and how ISC is just exponentially better when doing stuff to their tracks over SMI. What I mean is that ISC has more tracks and they have better racing quality on their tracks, and they've managed their tracks so much better than SMI over the past few years, especially when it comes to repaves. SMI sucks. They just suck, okay? Let me read you a list of SMI tracks. Ready? Atlanta Motor Speedway hasn't been repaved since it got reconfigured. Okay, whatever. That's fine. They shouldn't repave it because they'll ruin it. Bristol, they reconfigured it. It made it now so that it was topsided around, or it was single file around the top side. So they need to add PJ1 to make the inside work. Okay, that they ruined the track, but at least they kind of fixed it with PJ1. Charlotte Motor Speedway, they repaved it and it hasn't been the same since then. Kentucky Speedway, they repaved it and it sucks even more. Las Vegas, they actually made better by adding progressive banking, so that's something that they actually did good. New Hampshire and whatever, Sonoma and whatever, but Texas, they also butchered with the reconfiguration and the repave and all that. It sucks. It got repaved back in 2017, hasn't shown any signs of wearing out. Now compare this with ISC. Auto Club hasn't been repaved since it was built in 1997. Chicagoland hasn't been repaved since it was built in 2001. Darlington, repaved back in like 2008. But guess what? It's back to where, within a few years, it was back to where tires meant everything. Daytona, whatever, it's Daytona. Homestead, they reconfigured to progressive banking, and it's been great since then. Kansas, they reconfigured to progressive banking and repaved back in 2012, and it now wears out tires. It only took like 2 years for the groove to widen out. Meanwhile, Texas and Kentucky, we're still lucky if we get a second groove. Martinsville, good racing there. Michigan's the only track they really butchered. Phoenix, they reconfigured and repaved back in they repaved back in 2011 and reconfigured it. They got rid of the grass and the dogleg. So technically they made that track better. Richmond's a good track, Talladaga's a good track, and Watkins Glen they repaved, but it didn't really matter. So ISC has all these great racetracks, and they've repaved a bunch, and they haven't gotten worse. In fact, most of them have gotten better. And then you have SMI, where they repaved tracks, and then they have to add PJ1 to 50% of the racetrack to try and make something happen, and it's stupid, okay? Don't add PJ1 everywhere. If you're going to add PJ1, add it to one groove, okay? They do it right in New Hampshire and Bristol. Around the bottom. At New Hampshire, they do it around the bottom and into the third groove. But dear God, when you go to Texas and Kentucky and they lather up 75% of the racetrack with PJ1, that's dumb. It's stupid. Just stop doing that. I think they have some sort of investment in PJ1, so they just have to keep using it to give PJ1 money or something. I don't know what it is, but it's dumb. Just stop, SMI. You're ruining everything. You repave stuff, you ruin it, and then you try to add PJ1 on it, and you still ruin it. Stop! Just stop! Just stop doing stuff to tracks. God damn. ISC does so much better. Kansas, ever since they reconfigured it, has been better. Right? They did better. Homestead, they reconfigured it, and it got extremely better. They repaved, they haven't repaved Auto Club. They haven't repaved Chicagoland. They're some of the best racetracks on the schedule. And they have SMI. They have Texas. They repaved in 2017 and reconfigured it. Kentucky, same story there. Same exact year. They just ruined tracks. Bristol, they reconfigured it, and then it was single file around the top side, which is worse than single file around the bottom because you can't even move people if they're on the top because you don't want to put them in the wall and then you can't go anywhere. Dumb. It's stupid. So SMI ruins tracks, ISC can make them better, and that's shown with Kansas, because Kansas is actually better, and it actually has tire wear, and it actually has fall off, because they know how to repave tracks, unlike SMI. And this is why people don't want Atlanta repaved, because if Atlanta gets repaved, since SMI owns it, it will take 50 years for that track to come in and wear out to where they can actually have multiple grooves. And by that time, they'll probably repave it again, because God forbid you lose money, right? That's all SMI is in it for. They're in it for the money. ISC is in it for the racing quality. SMI doesn't want to lose money. So they repave it to where the tracks are never going to wear out, right? So that when they don't wear out, they don't have to repave it as much. ISC doesn't care about that. They'll repave it whenever they want. They'll repave it in 10 years if it means it puts on good racing for 7 of those 10 years. For SMI, it might take 15 years for a track to come in, and then it'll come in for 2 years, and they'll repave it and then it'll take 30 years, right? SMI is stupid. They're dumb. They just don't know. They don't know what they're doing. So, yeah. ISC is just the better track owner. SMI is dumb and stupid, and no one likes them. That's basically it. But and now to the weekly package talk, because every race has to have package talk. Matt Benedetto, a outspoken critic of the 2019 rules package, made another claim after being involved in a big crash on a restart involving Jimmy Johnson, Joey Logano, and some others. Matt Benedetto was extremely torn up and done, and his playoff bubble has his gap over the cutoff has extremely shrunk after this. It's now down to like 35 points. It was over 50 and over 60 a few races ago. He's had back-to-back bad days, stuff none of his doing. Quinn, who the fuck are you, decided to screw him at Texas by coming from the turn 3 and 4 grandstands to pit, and then here at Kansas he got screwed because of a restart crash. He had nowhere to go because you're packed 3 and 4 wide. Matt Benedetto, in an interview with NBC, called out the package, saying when you have so little horsepower and it takes 45 minutes to get up to speed, you're clumped together, so you can't really go anywhere. Obviously, it's an exaggeration. It doesn't take 45 minutes to get up to speed, but yes, it takes longer to get up to speed when you have a neutered engine. So, Matt Benedetto is maybe the most outspoken person about the package. The only other person that comes close is Kyle Busch, obviously. But Matt Benedetto will go on Twitter and talk about it. Kyle Busch doesn't really talk about the package on Twitter. He only really talks about it over the radio and sometimes in interviews and media stuff, but he doesn't really go on Twitter about it. Matt Benedetto will go on Twitter, and if there's a post about some cool Xfinity thing that happens, he will absolutely go and be like, that's awesome. That, it was cool how they had to do that. And then if something happens in the Cup race, he'll be like, yeah, that was just stupid because of the package. So he is maybe the most outspoken person about the package. And, I mean, he has reason to be. You go on board someone at Kansas, and they barely have to lift, right? And it's just so, I know it's like maybe made the racing better at Kansas. Kansas had good racing before that, and it's obviously made it more super speedway-like. But, just seeing them do that, it's just annoying. They're getting up to 180 down the straightaways, I think. Cool, 180. It's just so, I just miss hearing the throttle control through the corners and, just stuff like that. Even at the end of the race, the package kind of hindered it. Denny Hamlin's out front, Brad Keselowski is charging in second. But once he got within 8 car lengths, he never got closer. Because Denny Hamlin went and took his line away, and Brad could do nothing else. He couldn't get any closer than 8 car lengths. Now, I'm not saying that wouldn't have happened if it was a low downforce package, but I believe with a low downforce package, Brad could have at least gotten closer to Denny and done something. But when you're barely lifting and you have giant spoilers on the rear creating dirty air through the corners, and you have to follow the guy because that's the fastest groove, or you have to try and find something and that's the slower groove, so you lose time anyway. I mean, that's just disappointing, Like, he closed in big time, fast, was gaining 8 car lengths. Yeah. He couldn't close in any more than that, which that's it's disappointing. That's for sure. But even you go and you look at the passing stats, since the track was reconfigured back second race of 2012, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. What? Yeah, I can't count, but I think it's 11. 13. I think it's like the 16th race on the. Is that really the 16th race on this reconfiguration? Hold on, I'm actually gonna have to count for real now. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Yeah, this is the sixth. That was the 16th race on the reconfiguration. God dang. So yeah, this was the 16th race on the reconfiguration. This race had the 5th lowest passing rate since the reconfiguration. Obviously, the first one was the lowest because it was the newest surface, single groove. You couldn't really do anything. That I give a pass to, but it wasn't higher than many. There were a few it was higher than. I think it was higher than the 2015 Chase race. It might have been higher than a 2016 race, a 2018 race, I think a 2014 race, and maybe a 2013 race. It wasn't higher than much, that's for sure. But like, I think its like rate was 9.2 passes per green flag lap. Last year had like 13.0 and 11 point something. 2018 had like 7 point something and 10 point something. 2017 I think we're both like over 11. Now granted, I think the big reason that didn't happen, that the passing rates were down, was because there were no green flag pit stops. There was not a single green flag pit cycle. All the pit stops that happened were under yellow, so obviously there's no green flag. When a pit cycle happens, that buffs up the green flag passes a ton, because the leader can come down pit road first. All those people that pass them, they get counted as green flag passes. Even though it's on pit road and it's not technically a pass, it still gets counted as a pass. So, you know, that gets counted in. So the more green flag cycles you have, the better the passing rates, the better the passing numbers are going to look, because it gets counted in. So the fact that there wasn't a green flag pit cycle last night really, really hurt the passing numbers. In that showed it had, I think, just over 2,000 passes and 9.2 per lap, which once again I said is the 5th lowest. So, that's not it's not great. I'll be honest. I was expecting more. When I went and looked at those numbers, I was expecting at least like 11 per lap, but that didn't happen, which is quite shocking. But that's what happens when you just have yellow after yellow at bad times. Especially with the stages. I mean, God, stages really just, I don't. This could be a whole nother video when I finish the watching those races. Right now I'm on 2015, so I'm actually getting close. But spoiler alert, I think stages have actually ruined racing a little bit. Even though I've normally been pro stages, I still think that they have hurt the strategy and hurt the racing. I'll explain why in that video. But that's so. I think that's really all I have to say. I talked about the package and how I'm just like about it. Talked about Matty D getting mad. Talked about how SMI sucks and all that. So successful race. Next race we have big motor, small blade. Thank God. New Hampshire. Going back to the low downforce with high horsepower package. So that should be fun. Last time we ran this package at New Hampshire was 2018, and that was one of the better races of 2018. In fact, one of the better, maybe the best New Hampshire race I've ever watched. So that hopefully it's fun. Hopefully without practice it's fun. I don't know. That's another thing. NASCAR said they're not doing practice and qualifying for the rest of the season. I say screw that. Give them at least 30 minutes to practice, because god dang, you can't be doing that. At least let them qualify. Like, God, doing it by random draw is just stupid at this point. Let them qualify for the playoff race at least. And if you're not going to practice at the Daytona Road Course, you're dumb. Like, you let them practice at Indianapolis. You're not going to let them practice at the Daytona Road Course? Come on now. Let them do it. They need to do it. We need to see. And then you're going to go and change the package because you don't want them to go too fast. You're going to get them the stupid drafting package or something. Probably going to be stuck with that. So that'll be fun. That's it. Thanks, everyone. See you guys next time.